Good afternoon. Thanks for coming with us today on Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania. Our guest and the third and fourth interviews of this political season are Cindy Fisher, currently a supervisor over in Cecil Township running for county commissioner. Thank you, Larry. And Larry Maggi, who has been a county commissioner for 20 years. Okay, we have a lot to get into today because it's the county position, and people look at it as just sort of like, well, you're up there and you're in charge of these organizations, but they never see what kind of organizations you're in charge of, nor do they go in depth of what is required to, in fact, hold those positions. So what we're going to do today is, in this hour-long period, we're not going to be able to go into real depth, but we're going to be able to go into a little bit of history and a background and what makes you qualified for this versus the many divisions you have. I think there's like 24, 27 different organizations that you have to be in charge of at the county. We've talked about some of the, before the program, we talked about some of the expenses that are crazy that you have to deal with whenever other people make a decision. We'll lightly talk about that too. But anyhow, once again, let's get started here. Facts about Washington County. And this is, people don't know that Washington County has 4 times more people than Iceland.
I didn't know that.
See, well, that's what you said. Being a social studies teacher, I come up with this stuff, so you have to just hold on. The registrations, which have changed over the years, there's about 68,000 Republican registered in the county, and there's about 57,000 Democrats and about almost 14,000 independents, which I happen to be one of them now. Okay, and there's almost 4,000 people in other parties. Some more facts. You have 2 cities, Washington and Monongahela. You have 32 boroughs. You have 14 school districts and 32 townships. Okay, so whenever people see county commissioner, they see one thing. And it's far from one thing whenever you're dealing with all these different political subdivisions, because the county is participating in the school district for taxes. The monies that are gotten from the meadows and things are distributed through the school districts. The townships all are clamoring for help. They all need it for road repair and everything else that goes on. The boroughs are no different. They're looking for police money and safety and things like that, and dealing with 2 totally different cities, Washington and Monongahela. It was sad, but whenever I was a guard in the Silence of the Lambs, and whenever they were shooting that picture, they were looking for a town that, in fact, they would shoot a timepiece, a 1920 timepiece. And the next day, the people that they sent out came back. And the director was standing there going, "Why are you people here?" And they said, "We found your town." And they said, "Really? How much do you think it's going to cost?" He said, "About $400 to change it. That's the only thing. We have to change one traffic light in the middle of town. Everything else," and it was Brownsville. And it hasn't changed. It really hasn't, and that's the sad part too. But there's, like I said, there's a lot more as a county commissioner than meets the eye. There's a lot more of county commissioner that experience is required. You can't just do this coming out of college and think, well, I have a degree, I'm special. Some of the departments in the county, and this is what people don't understand. All right, buildings and grounds, coroner, correctional facilities, planning, probation, magistrate districts, public safety, police, sheriff, solicitor, tax. You don't get this by sitting in a college. You don't get this experience by sitting in a college course. I don't even care if you're in a government course. You don't get the experience of learning the problems that come with these departments unless you've been in government for a period of time. And that's the key to this election. The people that aren't qualified are running against you too. And like I said, it seems strange that I'm looking at this through a different spectrum than I used to, because I used to be on the right, far on the right, And now I'm luckily in the middle, trying to see the best people for these jobs, and that's what we'll be talking about today. I did a side-by-side comparison of you folks and the people that I'm competing against, okay? And I really feel bad because it didn't come out quite as clean as I wanted. The first one, Larry, you have a bachelor's from California. I went there too, okay? You also went to McGuffey High School and Pennsylvania Police Academy. You've been a county commissioner for 20 years, okay? Washington County Sheriff for 6 years, Pennsylvania State Police for 24 years, U.S. Marine Corps for 9. Okay, so we have the military service, we have the political service, and we both went to California, and we both had motorcycles. So, like I said, we got to make sure that we understand it.
Yeah.
Cindy, you went to Duquesne University for your master's.
I did.
And your bachelor's also.
I did.
Okay, you've been a Cecil Township supervisor for 10 years.
Yep.
But you're not only the supervisor, you're in charge of that board right now.
I am the current chairperson.
And how many years have you had that?
This is my 3rd year as
Your
the
third?
chairperson.
Okay. And you went with Jameson's Army Executive Board. Can you explain what that is?
Jameson's Army is a Cecil-based charity that specializes in children with special or congenital heart defects. So I've been on that board, executive board, for 10 years.
Okay. And Dick's Sporting Goods Planner. Explain that for a minute.
So I worked in the strategic planning department, essentially helping to plan where new stores would go for their business. So at the time, it was I was the financial person in that strategic planning group. So we
Okay.
worked with real estate to plan for new stores.
Well, now let's look at your competition. And I don't know why the blocks came up in here. I couldn't get them out. Nick Sherman, bachelor's from Clarion. He went to South Park High School, even though he said that he was a lifelong resident of Washington County. I brought that up in my last program. He's been a county commissioner for 4 years, domestic outreach program for 16 years, which his family owns. So it was sort of, his sister works for the same company, so it's sort of like the family business, period. He was an assistant to Tim Murphy, which I wouldn't really brag about that because the way Tim left, and it said a legislative assistant. He did not have any military career or time spent. The person running with him, Janice Electra, went to Chatham for his master's and bachelor's. The government experience, it all depends who you talk to. Whenever I talked to the office, the person said, yeah, she worked here. If you see her literature, she was the chief of staff or the office manager. It was a far cry from all three of those. She Scarmazzi Homes part-time, and I had to bring this up to show people, if you look at her LinkedIn account, which I looked at and found that she has like 27 years experience, all in the same 6 or 7 years. And here it is right there. She ran for office full-time while she was working at Scarmazzi Home part-time, and during this period of time she was also in the Pennsylvania Rep's office, and she was a student intern, and she was a program assistant, and she was an intern, and she was a practicum UPMC part-time, and she was an assistant to the director. I mean, but these are all overlapping times. So how much time do you really spend and how much do you learn in these offices? You know what? I've got 6 degrees. None of them would have taught me how to be a commissioner. So I just wanted to bring, because like I said, whenever she talks, it's like I have this vast experience, and it's not there. You know, she's part-time here, she's full-time there, she's full-time during the time she says she's full-time someplace else. So, Cecil Township, best places to live in Cecil Township by the Best Places organization. Mm-hmm. And that was while you were tenured. Mm-hmm. You know, so let's talk about that for a second.
Cecil Township is a very growing community, and I'm proud to lead it, proud to work with the residents in the area to make it a great place to work and raise a family. We have South Point, which is, you know, booming and doing really well right now. So it's a wonderful community. I'm very proud to be the head of it.
Well, it seems to be making headlines, and you know, like I said, it's good to see that you were involved in that because of the fact that, your experience as a supervisor in an up-and-coming community, you have to deal with fire department, you have to deal with police department, you have to deal with emergency management, you have to deal with troubles in the community. We just saw that terrible accident with the house blowing up in the North Hills. That's responsibility of the local people. That's usually doesn't go to the county or to the state, so it's the local responders that you folks have both dealt with in the past are the ones that have to respond to those terrible situations. But on the other hand, you have good things going on too. You have gatherings like you said, for the group that you were a part of as a board member. Larry, you have been involved in everything over the years. I mean, and I want to point out, whenever this studio opened, you are the first person here to do an interview. Okay, so I want to point that out so everybody, remembers. This isn't the first time you've been here. It's a number of times, and it's again. Let's talk about the things that you have done in 20 years. South Point, okay, was a major thing that has grown and developed, as you said. But that was with a lot of county input for sure. Let's talk about some of the other things that you feel proud about over the years.
Well, Bill, one thing, you're right. You and I both born and raised here, worked here, educated in this area, and we have a passion like you do. I feel it from you also. We both have a passion for Washington County, and you kind of live it. And I think, as you mentioned, and we're talking about a little bit about Cecil Township, South Point, and what's gone on in the past 20 years. During that 20 years, we saw the birth and growth of the energy sector in Washington County. 2007, I think the first Marcellus shale well was drilled up in near Hickory, close to Cecil Township. And we kind of ushered that in. When I say ushered in, we welcomed them. Sure. We made it Washington County prepared for it, for the smart drilling. We wanted the energy sector here, but we wanted to make sure everything was done right, and it was. And I think we've seen the energy sector prosper in the past 20 years. And Cecil Township, we talk about the development there. Cecil Township is one of our fastest growing townships in Washington County, and
in Western Pennsylvania.
In Western Pennsylvania, and in the last census, really the only township in Washington County that had grown in census was Cecil. They grew from the last census. So it's exciting. There's a lot going on now. Obviously there's been there's changes in development, and we need to plot a new course, and we really need good leaders there to make the right decisions and work together to get things done.
Well, we talked about it a little bit, and the things that come up that the county has to pay for, that sometimes isn't in anybody's plan, okay, which can be devastating when you have to look forward to spending so much. I had a individual here on the program the other day that was running for district attorney, and she enlightened me on some of the things, and I in fact did my investigation on some other things and found that whenever a district attorney puts a person on the death row, as it were, before he actually gets to the court and the hearings and everything else, that can cost $300,000 to $400,000 for the county, and that's not something you can budget for, because you never know when they're going to do something like that. And the disturbing thing for me is the fact that, one, we have a governor that has already said he's not going to permit anybody to be killed through the court system, and even the president said the same thing, and the Department of Justice has said the same thing. But Washington County has 12 people on death row, and so you multiply that 12 by the $300,000 or $400,000 it costs to, in fact, hire people to defend them, hire people to go in, to investigate their backgrounds. Excuse me. that's a big chunk of money that could be spent in other places, you know, and if they deserve it, I have no problem with the death penalty, you know, as far as that. I'm not banning it or anything else, because there are some people in this world that shouldn't be in this world. We look at that terrible situation at the Jewish Center in Pittsburgh, you know, where he came with the idea of killing all those people because they had a certain faith. And I'm sorry, I can't defend that at all. So, like I said, I'm not trying to, you know, say that we ought to stop or ban it by any stretch, but the bottom line is their actions in the law department causes you issues. Okay, and that's, like I said, that's like one of those emergencies that happen. A house blows up, and then all of a sudden your expenditures go out the window and what you thought, and now you have to reevaluate that. Well, some people who are, well, a person who's running has never had that experience, good, bad, or indifferent. Even if it's a heavy snowfall, you know, bringing more people in and your budget for employment for snow truck drivers goes up because of the fact, you know, you didn't plan on that necessarily. This winter is supposed to be very bad. You know, it's supposed to be worse than last year was, you know, it was like summertime all winter. But this year is supposed to be bad according to the Farmer's Almanac. And yeah, and how much you believe in that. But the bottom line is, if you don't have experience in that, how do you deal with that?
I think that's why it's important to elect people like Larry and I. We've had the opportunity to sit in these positions, to budget for, I'll give you an example, in Cecil, we had a road that slid. It was unexpected, but essentially started to slide off the hill. It was a road that was traveled heavily by residents and school buses, and it ended up costing us $3 million to repair over a period of time of our $11 million budget. That's extensive. But as you're planning through the budgeting process, you put monies aside so that in the event of emergencies or unforeseen circumstances, you can handle those situations. And I think that's where experience, you know, I've had 10 years in Cecil, Larry's had, you know, 20 years in the county, and we are level-headed enough and have had the have the experience to adjust and make changes. You know, I was recently talking to a Peters Township supervisor about Miss Janice, and who's running for county commissioner, and just saying you don't start at the top. You have to learn. This is a very hands-on, learning on the job type job. But you have to learn about how county government works, how local government works, learn about the interaction. That's how I got to know Mr. Maggi, is because I was working in Cecil as a township supervisor and he was working in the county. So it's those experiences that help you make those decisions.
Well, experience is the key factor in any government. When I was on the school board, I was buildings and grounds superintendent, or not superintendent, but I was overseeing buildings and grounds. That was my job when we built this school. And if you don't have experience, I have to thank Mr. Rosito for that. Giving me, I mean, working for Lou Rosito is like getting a doctorate in construction in every aspect of it. But that's, like I said, I learned so much by being in that organization that whenever this building was being built, I was able to question things and ask questions that, in fact, the architects and engineers had to answer. You know, where if you don't have that experience in those kind of things, you don't have that background. You can't ask those questions because you don't know them. And that's the key. You have to have the personal experience, which both of you have in local government as well as county government in this case. The California University has changed. You know, it's now with
Penn Western University
of California or whatever. I can't keep up with them anymore. Like I said, it's just, you know, there's so many changes going on. You know, this current federal administration. We talk about the gas and the coal that Pennsylvania has always. Whenever I grew up here, all the veins of coal were still intact, and now the 5 or 6 veins that are down there are all taken out. And people don't realize, you know, whenever I tell them, did you get the state insurance to make sure your house doesn't fall into this? And they go, what are you talking about? Well, you know, it's a good thing to do. And, you know, but that's, you know, like I said, we have a federal government who is like fighting to get electric. Well, you know, my career field in the military for many years was disaster response all over the world. And Now, the problem that they're having with a lot of these electric vehicles that are getting flooded out in Florida or California or whatever, they're blowing up because the water is hitting the batteries. Well, whenever they're selling that idea, it sounds good that you may get, 250 mile on a charge, but they don't tell you it's going to take you 24 hours to charge up your vehicle so you can go shopping at the crossroads, So there's a lot of things that if you don't have any government background and haven't heard about those things, you don't know. You don't know, and how can you deal with it or think about it if you don't have a clue? Cindy, you and I have some common experiences too. We both went to Duquesne. Okay, one of my schools is Duquesne. We both got our animals from Bridge to Home. Okay, so like I said, whenever I do my background check, believe me, I'm down there looking at it. By the way, that's a great organization.
Oh, it's absolutely wonderful. We actually just sponsored their golf outing in our little puppy's name and Ruby's name. So.
Really? Yeah, we got a dog like 3 years ago, right after the pandemic started, and he is so funny. And the girls, the women here, keep asking me to bring him in for a program because the pictures I show them, he's laying on their sofa, like sleeping, everything, and he's only like 78 pounds, but he's still a lap dog. He likes NCIS. It just amazes me. But you have a number of children. You're involved in different organizations and things. Let's talk about that for a minute.
So together, my husband and I have 5 children, 2 sets of twin boys. Mike
and you're a twin also.
I am a
Yes.
twin. I have an identical twin sister who actually lives on the same street as me.
Oh, geez.
I know. So we have 4 boys and a girl together. And like I said, I have a twin, my twin sister. She actually, so ironically, we have 4 boys and a girl, and my twin sister has 4. We have 4 boys and a girl. She has 4 girls and a boy.
Really?
In
Oh,
that
my.
order. Isn't that
That's funny.
So I often joke that if you see me out and I don't say hi, it's probably not me. So.
But you've been involved in the different sports?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, my boys played baseball and soccer. And our daughter dances. So yeah, very involved in the community, very involved in the Kennewick-Millen School District. So.
Okay. And Larry, you've been a referee for wrestling for 800 years?
Yeah, I actually got run out of this school a couple of times during a wrestling match here. So, yeah, I do. I'm pretty involved in wrestling and just a lot of veterans affairs and youth sports and things like that. So we get around in the community. A lot of stuff going on. And I think that's part of being a public servant or being in these positions. You got to be accessible to the public and maybe some real life experiences about what's going on. And I think that's what Cindy and I bring to the table. We have real life experiences. Cindy being a mom, a Cecil Township supervisor, and budgeting the home life and the work life and the township life, that's very difficult because I got 3 daughters who are trying to do the same thing. So it's a real challenge, but those give you real life experiences.
Well, you know what? It's funny you say that because my first marriage, I count them now, I had 2 boys. And the second marriage, I had 2 stepdaughters, and we had our own daughter. And, when you first have 2 boys, and this was in the 70s, it's like, all right, go ahead, you're going to play football, you're going to do this stuff. And then I had the girls, and there was nothing available. And we were living in Scott Township at the time. And I said, well, what about softball? Well, we don't have softball. What about, and this soccer was just coming into play and everything else. So, like I said, all of a sudden I thought how unfair it is that they didn't have that stuff. So I actually had to go to court to have the sport association to, in fact, open up for girls' sports too. And it's like I said, it worked out well because my kids got involved in everything, and my one stepdaughter graduated from high school with 14 athletic letters in 4 different sports, and she was swimming at Pitt in Division I. So like I said, them getting into sports have worked out very well. But that's something, if you don't have those experiences, you don't know that what's missing. you know. And so that's why, like I said, when my wife used to be the president of the Washington Symphony, but now she's on the board. And I put together a program that they had, a slide presentation that they had, and you were in there. You know, they recognized the veterans that were attached to the symphony members, and you were certainly a part of the symphony program. And I was pleased to see your picture and information in that program too that I was putting together. It's, you know, like I said, the differences and the things that you pick up in the different areas that you're in at the time. If it's your kids with sports, if you know, wrestling coach and things like that, it's, you pick up knowledge that other people don't have. And that's when, like I said, it's that vast background of knowledge that makes that commissioner position so much more important, because you know, like I said, you got kicked out of wrestling here, and you know, it was one of those things. It's not like permanent.
Yeah.
It's just like somebody doesn't like your call, so they get mad at you. Well, then today, you know, anybody, people are crazy. I just saw a guy get choked and one of the referees got choked at a football game by the coach. And so, yeah, it was on the news the other day on Channel 4, and I'm like looking at that going, what kind of society are we raising these kids to be a part of, you know? Well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stop for now, let them do a commercial break, and we'll come back for the second half of the program. I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll look forward on the B side. Well, thanks for coming back. Once again, our guest today is Cindy Fisher and Larry Maggi, asking for your vote for County Commissioner this election. Larry, you've had so much experience. I'm looking at the list here of all the different departments again, and you've had so much experience over 20 years dealing with all this, and it's been successful for you. You know, you've been reelected, what, 5 times now? Mm-hmm. And this will be the 6th time. Mm-hmm. Your partner in crime, I understand, is on a cruise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Yeah. Diane is I found that out from one of my contacts that she's on a cruise, and God bless her. I said after how long was she on council?
She's been on for be 28 years at the
28?
completion of this term.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
28
Yeah,
years.
that's time to back it up.
Yeah.
But anyhow, you've been involved in all these different kind of things, and once again, we've been talking about experience or the lack of, which makes a big difference when you're dealing with a community that is this big. Once again, I mentioned the number of people and things, the number of different political areas that you have to get used to. But if you have experience in the council as you do, you know how to deal with different departments. You know how to deal with other people and their rights to vote on certain issues, the way that, you know, you may not like it. Mm-hmm. But if you have the experience in knowing that. Cindy, I'm going to ask you, there's certain things that you don't have. For example, correctional facility, okay? That's not in pathonetary. That's a county type thing. But there are things that you have to deal with, and that is public safety. Mm-hmm. All right. Let me see what other things. Oh, police. That's certainly an issue for you over there. Dealing with magisterial district judges. You know, that's a district issue. Buildings and grounds. You know, and like I said, there's so many different things that you already have. Maybe not the whole gambit. But you already have a very large portion of that experience over 10 years, and
Correct.
Especially in charge of the group for the last 3. You, why don't you give me your own words on your experience level in some of these areas?
So as a township supervisor, our primary responsibility in the township is the health, safety, and welfare of the residents. So that includes police, fire, EMS, public works, primarily as emergency services. So we work with our chiefs of police, our director of public works, our emergency management, our firemen, in order to make sure the township residents are protected. That's one aspect of our responsibility. We also deal a lot with building and road construction. I know more about road construction than I ever thought I would have known.
Or ever wanted to.
Right. 10 years ago when I first started, if you would have told me I would know as much about paving as I do now, I probably would have laughed, but I know quite a bit about paving. Sewage, we're currently working on a sewage project in the Lawrence section of Cecil, so that's something we have to work with our municipal authority. In order to do that, we're actually in the process of building a new public works building, so I have the responsibility with my fellow board members of making sure that that's done to completion. It's something that we've needed for a long time in Cecil. The benefit of starting on a smaller scale before I decided to run for county commissioner is I have the opportunity to kind of learn as I go along. I'm not jumping in, so to speak, into the deep end of the pool. I've had great mentors in fellow supervisors and great mentors in our township manager and our township engineer to learn these things. So when I take on more roles in the county, I have this base of experience. I have the experience with the buildings and grounds, with the snow removal, with the public works, with the police, fire, EMS, and I have the ability to work with other people. I work very well with our township employees and my fellow board members in order to make things happen. That's why Cecil's been so successful for the past 10 years, and really before that, but for the past 10 years, is because we put the needs of our residents first, and I've been able to learn that as a board member in Cecil.
Yeah, it's interesting to see that, like I said, the experience from all the different jobs I had worked well whenever I was on the school board, because certain people had different positive aspects. We had a person who dealt with electricity. So whenever it came to something like that, but we learned from it. We learned, everybody who was there listening to what he was saying, we learned from it. We had an attorney who was beneficial, and whenever she would talk about something, you get that idea on how that affects, thinking of things in the district may not be the same thing you would think about in your home.
Correct.
And so whenever you're looking at that kind of stuff and the people around you sharing their knowledge, made it very positive being on the school board, as well as my short tenure on the council here, because of the fact that you get into taxing. Why do you need it? At that time also, the county was going through reassessment, which was changing a lot of things. We had some people with $400,000 homes who were paying $1,200 a year in taxes, and we had other people with $400,000 paying $8,000 a year in taxes. So when that reassessment came in, everybody had to readjust their budgets and everything else to meet those requirements. You don't get that in college. You don't find that behind a school book. And but whenever you're sitting there talking to the solicitor and you're dealing with legal issues that come up involved in that, Pittsburgh is going through that right now because of the fact that they're going through, I guess, reassessment, or that's at least on a ballot issue that they're pushing for the people who are running for their positions to answer. The other positions that you've had, you deal with sports groups, okay? That's other information you learn about. That's on that secondary group, but you do learn. And if you have kids, you learn about the schools. You learn about what's happening at school, what the activities are, and things like that. So you have a pretty good idea. If you don't have that, you lose that whole barrel of information. And that's what's really, that's what disturbs me going into this group, because of the fact whenever you're dealing with someone who doesn't have any of that and is trying to become the head of that, it makes me wonder why. Is it just an ego trip? Is it just, I can do this because my grandfather is paying for it type thing? I'm sorry, I find that offensive, for anybody. But the bottom line is, whenever you're looking at this, if you don't have the experience level on any of these things, which college doesn't teach you, and then you shouldn't be doing this. You should be looking to get some of this information, run locally, run for the council position or something, learn something before you put your hat in the ring, because it's just a silly effort. But, once again, whenever you're dealing with political groups who are short-sighted, and they, in fact, want to do what they think is good, not instead of looking at the people that are running, that's not the right thing to do. Larry, what do you look forward to doing in these next 4 years?
I think it's going to be exciting, and you're absolutely right. What we talked about a little bit earlier, life experience make you. You got to learn how to work with people. You got to learn how people work. You got to learn how to compromise. You got to learn how to get along and make good choices for the people. And that's why it's so important that people have good life experiences about in this job. I think what I want Washington County, and we have some challenges ahead. We got to make sure we continue with the safe energy sector in our safe drilling in our energy. We have to make sure to make Washington County and continue to make it a place where people want to come, where they want to work, where they want to play, and where they want to work. We have some great amenities here, and we got to get quality of life issues. I think that's something during COVID and during a lot of the things that went on the past 3 or 4 years that we've not thought about. I mean, we were so involved in different things like buying a new building during COVID, just doing a lot of things that really didn't help the county. And we got to get focused back on the people, what made Washington County great in the first place. Quality of life, amenities, that's so important. That's why people from Allegheny County want to come to Washington County. Low taxes, that's so important. Keeping our county taxes low and spending smartly, that's so important. And we got to get back to that to make sure we do that properly and make good choices. We need to bring some civility back to county government. It's been a difficult 3 or 4 years for a lot of reasons, and we got to get people there. It's going to discuss things, compromise, and move on. I know I've worked with Commissioner Ari Wan and several other commissioners for 20 years, and we didn't always agree, but we work together. We come out with an amicable solution and move forward. And the solution was what was best for the people, not which political party we were in. And I think that's so important that we remember that. And I think that's what our next board of commissioners have to remember. We're working for the people, not some political party. We're working for all the people and make good choices.
You brought an interesting part up because once again, when the population voting group changed over the last 10 years, all right, you keep getting voted in, okay, which is a very positive thing. The people understand, and they've looked for your leadership all these years, and it's worked out well. The benefit to that for the community is the fact you have. I liken it to a cruise ship. Your stabilizers are out there in the water making this go smoothly versus that of hitting the waves. I just, like I said, I'm personally couldn't imagine trying to do the job that you're trying to do. I didn't have as many years experience on the council, but in fact I was there whenever interesting topics were being done, the roads and things like that. But it's a big nut to crack. It's just it's just so big, and like I said, you don't have the resources that the governor has. To in fact, you have 6 or 7 people working for you, drawing your speeches up and doing this. You're doing all of that stuff yourself, and so you have to be able to do this stuff with the confidence of your experience and your knowledge to be able to vote on things that in fact make sense for, as you say, the entire community, not just one group. When I went to California, part of my program was geography, and we did a survey around, And it was interesting to realize that how many homes down in that area still had outhouses at that time in the 90s. You know, when I grew up here, our house had a coal furnace. My friends used to come over and help. They loved to stoke the coal furnace. Now, none of their houses had coal. Ours did, you know, but it was, you know, like I said, it wasn't something that anybody was used to. And so that we don't, in Peters Township, it's hard to believe now that there are still people without houses. You know, there are. It's hard to believe when you're dealing in a community like this, in a school building like this, that there are people that don't have air conditioning. I mean, 34 buildings in the Pittsburgh school don't have air conditioning. So, you know, like I said, after all of these years, you would have thought they would have done something about that, but they don't. And so they have to call off school when it gets too hot. You know, we look at things and take for granted a lot of these things are going to be here. You know, good schools, good police department, good fire department. You know, we expect them to be there in a snip time. And but that doesn't happen without good leadership. That doesn't happen without, you know, Peters just built another fire hall over in the Venetia area. It was needed for years, you know, but the requirement was that you have to be able to respond within a certain period of time. Well, if you're not involved in that, people don't know that. So they built that department over there. Now we have 3 in the township. And it's growing by leaps and bounds. You know, you mentioned the people coming from Allegheny County. I can't tell you how many people in our plan that have moved from Upper St. Clair, Mount Lebanon, and Bethel over the last couple of years. Every time a house goes on the market, it's snapped up by these folks because of my son lived in Mitchell's Corners up there behind in that area behind the gas station and everything, Upper St. Clair. He only had like a 1,100 square foot house, a little bungalow that he was living in, and he was paying as much taxes that I was paying here in Peters in the house that I have, which is 4 times larger. So, you know, like he said, and I don't doubt, especially with the school district being rated as highly as they are now, the people are wanting to move over. At one time, Peters was a bunch of farm kids, and I was pleased to be one of them, you know. But now all of a sudden, you know, they can compete on every level in education and community service and everything as Upper St. Clair or Mount Lebanon. We have an opportunity to give you a few minutes, each one of you, to tell people why they should vote for you in this upcoming election. So, Cindy, would you like to look into the lit camera? I believe that will be, well, maybe you're just going to do all 3. Go ahead, spend a little time looking into that camera and tell people why you would be the best candidate.
Thank you. I think one of the things that, or not one of many things that, you know, qualifies me is my experience, but also my desire for what's best in Washington County. I've lived here for 20 years now. I'm raising my family. I want what's best for the county, and I believe my experience, along with Commissioner Maggi, is what's best to lead the county forward. It's been a bumpy few years in Washington County, and it's time to bring things back to normalcy and bring a little civility back and get things working for what's best for the residents of the county. So I humbly ask for your vote this November 7th so that we can get back to doing what's best for the residents of Washington County.
All right, thank you. Larry, now it's your turn.
Bill, thank you. What is so important in Washington County? Most of the people are pretty central. Most of the people are right in the middle. And when we make decisions as county commissioners, we're talking about making business choices. We try to keep the noise from the state and the federal level away from us. What we do is we just try to make good decisions. We run a $250 million budget, elections, corrections, public safety, numerous departments we run. We have over 800 employees. It's so important to run those effectively and efficiently. I've been a resident of Washington County my whole life. I got to work here, play here. Other than the time I served in the Marine Corps, I never left Washington County. And even as a state policeman, I worked here most of the time. And I have a real passion, and I share that with Cindy, her and I are running together. We have children here. I have grandchildren. Cindy has younger children. It's important. We want to make sure that Washington County continues to thrive and continues to grow and be the best county it can be. We want to take care of our people. We want to make sure our families stay here. We want to make sure they got good family sustaining jobs. We want to make sure they got good quality of life issues. We want to make sure they get good health care, medical care with the hospital situation. It's so important that we do that. I always like to talk about Washington County has a country charm, and I talked a little bit about people from Allegheny County want that. We got to work to make sure we don't lose that. We want to move forward. We're very pro-business, but we got to keep that country charm. We got to keep our environment safe down here. We got to be able to make sure people want to continue to come here and enjoy our parks and the other things that we have. So we just ask you to really look at the candidates this time, and you make the choice. That's what's great about a democracy. You got a secret ballot, but we want you to we challenge you to look into our backgrounds and look into our opponents' backgrounds and come up and make the right choice. And I certainly hope it's going to be for Cindy and I.
Well, once again, I'd like to thank both of you for coming in today. I know, it's your busy time of the year. You're getting ready for the election. And I certainly hope that it works out for both of you, because of the fact that I believe after getting to know, well, Larry, I've known you for years, getting to know you here in the past couple months, Cindy, I think that this would be a great selection for the community to, in fact, come together, drop politics to the side. As Larry said, I think most people are tired of the ultra-right, ultra-left. They want to be, as been pointed out to me before, a small r and a small d in the middle, and where the reason actually comes to play. So if they would please show the last slide, I'd like to thank you both once again for coming in. Please vote for Cindy Fisher and Larry Maggi on the 7th of November. Thank you very much for coming today, and we'll look forward to seeing you the next time on Talking Politics in Western Pennsylvania.